3 days after I gave birth, my husband finally showed up, but he wasn't alone. He brought a woman I didn't recognize with him. I was shocked, but I managed to ask him, "Who is this woman?" He smiled and said, "She's my girlfriend, or better yet, my future wife." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I'm tired of you," he replied. "What?" I couldn't believe it. "My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 25 years old. I work at a company. Recently, my boyfriend, John, proposed to me. We met in high school, started dating in our first year, and even broke up during our senior year. After we'd both finished college and grew up, we bumped into each other again at a reunion and started dating again. 3 years later, he proposed to me. I will love you, Elizabeth, for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" he said during the proposal. I believed him and said yes. I was overjoyed with my new life as his wife. I loved being with him every day. We both worked, so we only saw each other at night during the weekdays, but it was enough. I was happy to be with him until morning, instead of going to separate homes each night. When we were in high school, neither of us could cook, but in college, we each lived on our own and learned how to cook. We started sharing household chores, making our life together balanced and comfortable. John's specialty was fried food, and he was really good at it. I'm not great at making fried food, so I was happy he could cook it for me. I, on the other hand, was good at making Japanese dishes like simmered vegetables. John always praised how delicious they were, just the right taste, not too strong or too bland. I thought we would continue to support each other and live happily together. Then, after a year of marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I was so happy that I immediately told him, "John, I'm pregnant." "Oh, really?" "Yes, I am." "Wow," he said, his mouth hanging open in surprise, like in a cartoon. "John. Oh my God, I'm going to be a father." "Well, your reaction is a little slow," I said, laughing. "You really surprised me. I'm so excited," he replied. "I'm excited too, but now we have to work hard for our baby." John was thrilled about the pregnancy. I knew I'd enjoy raising the baby with him. At first, he was very concerned about my health. "Elizabeth, take it easy, okay? If it's too hard, you can quit your job." "Thank you, but I'll try to work until my maternity leave," I said. "Okay, I'll take care of everything at home." "Thanks." With his help, I was able to rest well through the morning sickness. As I got closer to my due date, things started to change. My husband began coming home later and later. "Did you work late again today?" I asked when he got home. "Yes, I left some things for my coworkers to do. Now that you're in a stable period, I thought it was time to make up for taking time off from work," he replied. "I see, so, you stayed late even though you had overtime to do?" "Well, your health is the most important thing, but I neglected my work for 2 months. I don't want to be out of a job after the baby's born." "That makes sense. I'm a little nervous about being home alone, but if that's the case, I won't complain. Maybe I'll go back to my parents' house when I start maternity leave," I suggested. He seemed relieved. "That's good, then I can work overtime without worrying." I knew I'd miss seeing my husband, but I also felt relieved knowing I'd have support from my parents during maternity leave. So, once my maternity leave began, I moved back in with my parents. It felt so much easier to be in a familiar home without having to do the housework. Having my mom around made me feel secure. But there was one thing that started to bother me. My husband had been slow to reply to my messages lately. Before, no matter how busy he was, he always replied the same day. Even when I had morning sickness, he would always get back to me quickly. But now, his responses were taking a day or even two, and they felt short and distant. The other day, I sent him a message asking if he was still busy at work and reminded him not to overwork himself. His response was just, "Yeah." I started to worry since I didn't see him anymore, but I knew I shouldn't stress about it since I was pregnant. So, I decided not to dwell on it and tried to focus on staying positive, thinking about life after the baby was born. I bought lots of baby things. "Oh, you're buying too much," my mom joked. "No, we need everything to make sure the baby is safe and comfortable," I said. "You're so excited about your first grandchild," my dad added. "You're the one who keeps asking the shop assistants questions," I laughed. "Thank you, Mom and Dad," I said, feeling grateful for their support. Even though my husband wasn't replying much, I stayed focused and happy, waiting for the baby's arrival. The due date finally arrived. I sent a message to my husband, letting him know it was the day, and told him to be ready to come to the hospital when I contacted him. But he didn't even read the message. Maybe he's busy with work, I thought. My husband knew my due date was coming, so I wished he would be more aware of it. As my labor pains began, we went to the hospital. I was finally going to have the baby. I couldn't call my husband myself, so I asked my mom to leave him a voicemail about the delivery. But still, he didn't show up that night. He didn't return any of my calls. I went up to the delivery table without him. The birth was harder and longer than I expected. The baby's umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck, which made the delivery difficult. It took almost a full day after the contractions started for her to finally be born. But when I saw my baby girl and held her in my arms, all the pain and exhaustion disappeared. She was beautiful. "You did your best to come into the world, didn't you?" I whispered to her. I said goodbye to my baby for a moment, then lay down to rest after the long hours of labor. I woke up in my hospital bed to find my mom sitting by my side. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "I'm okay, I feel pretty good," I replied. "I'm glad to hear that. Mom, what's wrong? You don't look well." She sighed. "I haven't heard from John since you gave birth." "Yeah, that's true. What's going on with my husband? We just had a baby." I was furious. Why hadn't he come to the hospital? I'd sent him a message saying the baby was born, but hours later, he replied saying he could come in 2 days. Why can't he prioritize coming here? I muttered. Before the baby came, I'd tried not to let myself think negatively, but now that the baby was here, I couldn't hold back my frustration. Why can't he come now, when his own child is born? Shouldn't he be here? I was boiling with anger. Is his work that strict? I sent him a message, putting all my anger into it, but he only read it and didn't reply. What's going on? He was so happy when I told him I was pregnant, but now he seems so distant. My parents were also upset. My dad said he'd give John a lecture when he saw him. Finally, 3 days after the birth, John showed up, but he wasn't alone. He brought another woman with him. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak at first. "You look well," he said casually. "Then don't message me like you're being chased," I shot back. He'd come with another woman, and now I had to deal with his cold attitude. I was stunned but managed to ask, "Who is this woman?" John smiled and said, "She's my girlfriend, or better yet, my future wife." I couldn't believe it. "What?" The woman next to him laughed and tapped his shoulder, saying, "What do you mean future wife?" I'm embarrassed. "What is going on?" I asked. John shrugged. "You don't get it, do you? It means you and I are getting divorced." "What?" I was in shock. "Wait a minute, are you saying you were having an affair?" John replied, "Well, adultery doesn't sound great. It's more like I found someone else to love and we hit it off." The woman chimed in, "I'm just tired of you." John continued, "You know, men are attracted to women who take care of themselves." "Are you saying I wasn't taking care of myself?" I asked, hurt. "You got fat and bloated staying at home all the time," he said coldly. "I was lying in bed because I was pregnant and sick. It's normal to gain weight when you're pregnant. So you had an affair because of that?" I couldn't believe what he was saying. "I don't have romantic feelings for you anymore," he said, turning to the other woman. "I met someone better. They started flirting in front of me." "I've had enough," I muttered. "Okay, I'm done. Just get the divorce and leave already," he snapped. "I'll leave without you having to tell me," I said, trying to hold it together. And with that, John and the other woman walked out of the room, without even looking at our baby. He didn't even ask about the baby's gender. It was clear he didn't care anymore. I was left there, mentally drained, feeling like I was going to have to raise our child alone. As I sat there, feeling down, the door to my room opened. "Huh?" I jumped, startled. It was John's mother, my mother-in-law, who walked in. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry for my stupid son," she said, her voice full of regret. Apparently, she had seen John and his new lover in the parking lot. After questioning him, he told her exactly what he had told me. She said she sent the woman home and then dragged John to the hospital to face me. "How could you do this? You had an affair with another woman while your pregnant wife was waiting for you, and now you want a divorce?" My mother-in-law's voice was full of disbelief and anger. "You have no idea how many times your father would have hit you if he were still here." I felt my heart sink, knowing what she was referring to. My father-in-law had passed away a few years ago. I didn't have a choice. She approached me, and I fell in love with her, my husband said, avoiding looking at me. How could I have married a man like this? I whispered, my voice trembling with hurt. My mother-in-law, still angry, looked at me. Elizabeth, do you still want to stay married to John? I didn't hesitate. No, I want a divorce now. She nodded, her expression softening a little. Well, that's fine. John, hearing that I wanted a divorce, seemed almost relieved. He didn't seem to care at all. But my mother-in-law wasn't done. Then you're going to pay alimony for your affair and child support. What? John looked shocked, as if he hadn't expected this. Of course, she continued, you committed adultery, you need to take responsibility for that, and if you divorce Elizabeth, I'll stop sending you money. John was baffled. What do you mean, sending money? My mother-in-law shot him a look of disbelief. Elizabeth didn't know about this? His income is so low that he asked me to send him a few $1,000s every month to support his life with you. I was stunned. I had no idea. John had a low salary, but I had always made more than him. I was the one covering for his lack of income, and now I found out that he'd been using the money his mother sent him to fund his affair. My mother-in-law's anger flared. I'm going to make you pay me back every penny I've given you. I'll cut all ties with you. Don't ever come back to my house again. John tried to protest, but she wasn't having it. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry for this mess. I'll help you find a good divorce attorney. You can take as much as you want from this guy. Thank you, I said, feeling a sense of relief that I wasn't facing this alone. My mother-in-law left with John, and I knew I had to get everything I was owed. I demanded divorce alimony and child support from John, and of course, I also went after his adulterous partner. John's life fell apart after that. He had deep debts, and without his mother's support or the money from his affair, he was left alone and broke. He spent his days paying off alimony and child support, living in poverty, with no one to turn to. As for me, I moved forward. I returned to work as a single mother, doing my best to raise my child and give her a good life. I stayed in touch with my mother-in-law, who was now a part of my life and my daughter's life. My ex-husband might have been in, but I could thank him for one thing: he had introduced me to my amazing mother-in-law. Having an affair while pregnant is unforgivable. I wish there was a harsher punishment for what he did, but in the end, I was glad the woman saw through him and walked away from that kind of scum. Now, I focus on my daughter and look forward to a happier life with her. I hope we can live peacefully and joyfully from here on out.